NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang is here in Seoul for a second visit in some 7 months. And on Press Perspective today, we tell you about his agenda here amid ongoing debate of the risks and rewards of AI. Hello and welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for this Friday, June 5th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang arrived here in Seoul earlier this afternoon after landing at Gimpo Airport on a chartered flight. Speaking to members of the media at the airport, he said he was here to relay his gratitude to partners and customers. Today we start with Mr. Huang's visit before delving into other social issues based on AI. For this, our freelance reporter David Lee here in the studio. David, it's been a while. Welcome back.
It's good to see you again.
I also have writer Colin Marshall with us. Colin, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
David, we start with you. Let's begin with NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's latest visit to Seoul, which I believe is his second in some 7 months. What's his agenda here and what has been the focus of the foreign media?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this is his second visit in just 7 months, and it really shows how South Korea has become one of NVIDIA's most important partners in the AI industry. Yes, he arrived in Gimpo earlier today for a 4-day visit. And one of his first stops actually was a PC방, where he met Faker and his T1 team, his League of Legends team. And, you know, during the last visit to Korea, he also was quoted as saying that without PCbangs and without Korean games and esports, NVIDIA would not exist today. So he has interest in the gaming industry and all esports as well. But beyond that, beyond the gaming connection, the real focus of the trip is AI, of course. Huang is also going to meet startup founders, robotics companies. Robotics is one of the major industries that he thinks South Korea is going to develop over the years. And he's going to go to universities to meet with researchers and students. And you might remember the last time he came to Korea, he went to a popular fried chicken chain. And this time he's going to a samgyeopsal house in Hongdae, actually tonight. And the name of the samgyeopsal place is called 형님 저요, which loosely translates to "It's me, big brother." So it's very characteristic of him to go to these very social areas and gatherings. And the timing for his visit is actually very crucial for his company, as NVIDIA is preparing to mass produce its next generation AI accelerator, Vera Rubin. And the reason that he's visited Taiwan and South Korea this week is that these two countries are the most important suppliers of semiconductor chips. In Korea's case, they are dominant in the memory chip supply chain. So especially as they are the global leader in high bandwidth memory, or HBM, and this is necessary for AI computing in today's world. So a lot of foreign media, they really covered how South Korean companies, these tech firms, really need NVIDIA, but it's actually a two-way street in where NVIDIA also looks to South Korea for its supplies. Yeah.
Right, indeed. And NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, Colin, has a very strong following here in South Korea, to say the least.
Yes.
How do you explain this phenomenon?
Yes, it is curious that the CEO of a microchip company would be received with this Elvis fandom-like fervor, like the Beatles, or a BTS member might be the same, to use a more current reference. But as we say in the US, nothing succeeds like success, and it's even truer here in Korea. Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Mark Zuckerberg, they all have very large fandoms here in Korea. You can tell that when you go to the bookstore and see the shelves upon shelves of books dedicated to these figures and how to succeed and make yourself like them, books of sort of varying reliability. But Jensen Huang is a bit of a different case as well. He brings some extra dimensions, one of them being that he is an immigrant to the United States. He was born in Taiwan, grew up there for about 7 years. So in childhood, went to the US and had an unusual experience there as well, sent accidentally to this countryside Kentucky reform school for troubled youths, and that was a formative chapter for him, he says. But then he went on to he did a lot of manual labor, but he was also involved in computers, so very much a self-made man. That stands out to people here, especially because of how successful he has become in the decades since. And it's important to underscore as well that he's, as I say, from Taiwan, and he is an immigrant, thus, from an Asian country that is much like South Korea in many ways. The history is not dissimilar at all. So there's a degree of identification there without the sort of complexity of feeling Koreans can sometimes have about Korean Americans. And so that the distance actually makes him feel a bit closer, I suspect, to people. And as well, he reads also as an American. He's highly acculturated to the US. So he does, in his person, evoke this whole narrative of successful emigration to the US and assimilation while retaining his own roots, his own origin. He goes to Taiwan. He learned Mandarin later. He was a Hokkien speaker, interestingly. So again, you can talk about his life story a lot, but there are these qualities. There's the fact that he speaks to anyone who asks and is the founder of his company, let me underscore, and an engineer. So he understands the product and can explain at whatever level it need be, whether it's to the media or to specialists, what the company is doing, what they're making, and why it's important. Most CEOs can't do that. Most Korean CEOs cannot do that. Their companies they're conglomerates. There are too many things the companies make for any one individual to explain them. Usually that CEO did not found the company. They probably inherited it because they're family operations, the conglomerates here, and they're not as communicative as Jensen Huang. Nobody is, but they know the value of keeping the cards close to the vest in Korea for their kind of operation. So Jensen Huang is also, in many ways, the opposite of a Korean CEO, of a successful Korean business leader. And so I think a lot of people see him and they see an example of another way it could be, but he's not so different, so culturally different that it seems inapplicable. He's not Elon Musk, but he's in a way becoming more successful and more known here to an extent.
All right. And Mr. Huang's visit to Seoul comes at a time of renewed debate with regard to artificial intelligence here in South Korea. Now, this is because AI appears to have played a tangible role, if you will, with regard to Korea's this week's, that is, local and parliamentary by-elections. Quite a number of voters apparently sought its opinion on generative AI platforms before heading out to polling stations. Could you tell us a bit more about this phenomenon and the public response to it?
Yeah, so one of the most interesting developments was that AI became part of the election process itself. So as you mentioned, many voters use ChatGPT and other AI platforms to really summarize candidate pledges and compare policy positions. Some users even asked AI who was the less corrupt candidate or recommended who they should vote for. As you know, with the ballots, you receive numerous, 7 or even more paper ballots. But voters weren't the only ones who were using the AI this time. The government also used AI to analyze polling data and help voters better understand candidate pledges. So it went both ways. And AI also can help identify closely contested races and speed up the election process, showing results faster. But there is a concern it's that AI is only reliable as the information that it receives. So experts, they've been warning that voters should really cross-check AI-generated answers and use reliable sources whenever as possible. And this comes at a time when the South Korean society is really dealing with the mass production of fake news, deep fake images and videos that are spreading misinformation. The National Election Commission actually just identified nearly 10,000 deepfake related posts as of last month, as they were preparing for the local elections this month. And one case that was highly publicized in the media was that a fake TV news report claimed a mayoral candidate had been named to Time Magazine's list of rising politicians in the world. So all of these types of misinformation is spreading across social media. And the Election Commission has deployed a special team of about 440 people to monitor and remove AI-generated election disinformation this time. So in serious cases, offenders can face criminal penalties and even face jail time.
Right. And before we delve deeper into deep fakes, I'd like Colin's opinion on something. Speaking of NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang here in the country, he's also been one of the pundits who've claimed that blue-collar jobs will persevere amid the advances in AI. Findings reportedly show that here in South Korea also there's been a shift towards vocational training. Colin, what have been some of your observations?
Yes, he's spoken in interviews on the subject, and not just about the value of blue-collar jobs going forward, but also in general, he's taken time to try to speak against or try to sort of tap the brakes on this idea that AI is going to destroy human labor itself or large swaths of jobs. Now, it could be true, what you see, that AI can affect or will affect many white-collar fields of employment. So many realms of knowledge work, you can see how they could be vulnerable to AI replacing human labor or just streamlining the process so that not so many more people are needed in those fields. Okay, it's fair enough to make that assumption, but when you look at the Korean case, what stands out to me, and it's a little early to say how big of a shift this is toward blue-collar jobs, but for the past couple of generations, as the Korean economy has been developing so fast, the attention or the resources for families has been driven so far into getting their kids into white-collar, high-status professional jobs, these careers which are, as we say, the ones that are vulnerable to artificial intelligence and its encroachment. And so in that process, you've also seen a diminution of the status of blue-collar work, of trades, of manual work. And so that doesn't necessarily just mean you're cleaning the sewers. It can be a wide variety of different occupations, but there have been problems finding various types of workers or craftsmen, what have you, to fill those jobs because all the status has been sort of drawn away by, say, medical professions or legal professions or indeed tech professions. And so it could be salutary, ultimately, if there was a shift back toward the types of employment that have not been, how to put it, not been elevated in Korean society these past couple generations. I think that's overdue for a rebalancing, and maybe AI will be the force that pushes that forward.
Right, especially quite a number of pundits claim that blue-collar jobs are the least likely to be automated. Now let's go back to deepfakes. David, I believe you also recently covered the risks of generative AI on South Korea's sense of reality. Could you tell us a bit more about your coverage?
Yeah, so I found out that more than 45% of South Koreans now use generative AI in their daily life. And this has coincided with the growing trend of using AI-generated images and videos on social media. Just one prime example is this widely shared video that's widely known as The Average Korean Woman. And it shows a woman sitting in the stands of a baseball game, and many people believe that she was an influencer or a common person because it's a very it happens all the time that Korean broadcasts often zoom in on fans when during the Korean baseball games, but it was found out to be a AI-generated video, and a lot of people, we talked about this before the show, people thought that she was maybe a celebrity or someone very famous because her hair was just perfect, standing there in the wind. I thought she was a celebrity.
There's no way she's an average Korean.
But yeah, it garnered so much interest that the video got more than 15 million views, and it inspired countless copies on Instagram and TikTok. Another prime example in Korea that happened in April was of the wolf Nugu, a wolf that escaped a zoo in Daejeon. But when the authorities in Daejeon were searching for the wolf, an office worker, for fun, created an AI-generated image of the wolf roaming the streets. And the image became so widely spread that the authorities actually used it in their alerts and press briefings. So the concern here is that experts, they're less worried about the casual use of these AI-generated images, for hobbies or for fun, but excessive immersion in these technologies, using it every day for everything. That's a point of concern for them. And especially with Korea's strong focus on appearance, this may make idealized AI identities especially appealing. So such excessive use may increase dissatisfaction with real appearance and everyday life, leading to a cycle of more dissatisfaction rather than creating a better reality. So South Korea actually did introduce AI ethical guidelines back in 2020, and they have been sort of debating and making changes to it. But the debate really has focused more on innovation rather than prevention and values. And experts say that compared to other countries who are a bit more ahead of South Korea in terms of AI, such as the US or China, they have set more concrete guidelines and even guidelines for punishments when AI is used in the wrong way. So these are some of the concerns that experts have told me.
Right. So, Colin, as David mentioned, this fight against false information, fake images, it's universal. What do you suppose should South Korea's campaign against this threat perhaps include?
Well, South Korea, true to form in recent decades, has been forging ahead with grappling with these technological matters as they arise. And so you see, for instance, more prosecution, much more about deepfakes than in other countries. And it reminds me a bit of the music industry in the US around the turn of the millennium, when music downloading, file sharing was becoming well known publicly, not just a niche pursuit anymore. And there was this sense that, people are stealing music. They're just downloading it without paying on the internet. What do we do about this? And the American music industry solution, so-called, for a while there was to prosecute as hard as possible certain cases, make them high profile, and hope that that would deter the great mass of others from downloading music. And it didn't work. Of course it didn't work because the technology is too widespread, and it only got more widespread. You can't stop it. And it's very much the same situation with AI-generated images. The proliferation is so fast, you're not going to be able to hammer all of these. It's like a game of whack-a-mole. You knock one down, 5 more are gonna pop up. And so that is, I think, what I imagine South Korea would do well to bear in mind, any country would, is the lesson of the US music industry. It would have been better off if they just said, okay, we can't stop this. What do we do if we can't stop this? Think of the hypothetical. If this stuff's gonna be out there, if music is free to download now, how do we deal with that? If deepfakes are going to be a click away for anybody to make, how do we deal with that? If we can't stop that from happening. And in a way, if deepfakes become that easy to make, or any kind of AI-generated convincing image video like this lady in the baseball stands, society tends to adapt. You'll stop thinking of video as proof positive, evidence of something having happened. And certainly the legal system will have to deal with that as well. But if everything could be deepfake, in a way nothing is. In a way, deepfaking itself loses its power. Because even if it is you in a video throwing out your recycling in the wrong bin, to use a very innocuous example, that could be a deepfake, And so, again, our assumptions will change, and society has a way of adapting to even the most disruptive technologies so far.
It does, thus far, right. David, I believe we have time for just one more story. According to the media over in the Philippines, K-entertainment appears to be emerging as a form of comfort there. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, so I read this article, and it reminded me really of how South Korea is perceived abroad. And as this article mentions, it's about fans in the Philippines. And Southeast Asia was one of the countries, before America and before Europe and South America, where it really was beginning to emerge as the main group of Hallyu fans. So there's this long history of people who are just fascinated with K-pop, K-dramas, K-movies, K-food, K-beauty, just everything South Korea. And as Seoul's slogan says, Seoul, my soul, the city is branded as a metropolis that inspires beauty, excitement, high standards in everything, from cleanliness to convenience. So I just really think people abroad who are fans of Hallyu, they really have this image of Seoul, of South Korea. And at the center of Seoul's branding strategy, I think, is culture, obviously. And it's flashy, it's glamorous, it's touching, beautiful all at once. So I really think it really makes sense how they prepare a night at home, and they really get to enjoy this experience even when they're not in South Korea, even when they're across the sea. The government and the companies here are just perfecting this image every day. So yeah, I think this will continue on.
Colin, how do you explain the significance, if you will, placed on a simple night of K-entertainment among the young over in the Philippines?
This can be something that Koreans might not understand, but you're recreating a Korean atmosphere. It's become important for fans around the world. And it brings to mind one thing I'll mention quickly, which is a while ago on the social network formerly known as Twitter, a Korean influencer posted some screenshots of a TikTok video of a Korean streetscape at night. Not a very wealthy area, looks much like the one I live in. To a Korean, it looks generic, and it had this caption, "South Korea is waiting for us." The maker of this video was clearly going for something very romantic with this video of what a Korean would see as a normal street. And Koreans responded with like, what? What is this? This is just some street. What are they talking about? But I get it. After 10 years here even, I still feel like, there is something there. There's something special there that you don't feel in a lot of other countries. Maybe if you're a K-drama fan, you feel like you're living in your own personal K-drama when you're walking around there. But I don't watch a lot of K-dramas, and I still feel like there is something in just the built environment here and the way things look and feel that maybe is what Korean pop culture has been capitalizing on to an extent in the world. But I don't eat ramyeon with K-drama at home, but I understand the desire and I understand the feelings behind it to a degree.
I think I have seokgang while watching Korean drama.
Not a bad idea.
Right. All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Colin, as always, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
David, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Right, that ends this week's editions of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. See you next Monday.